Welcome back. This is the question number 9 out of 100. And the question is, why do we cling to things that inevitably change? So this is another deeply unsatisfactory and very, very vicious process of not finding something to latch onto. Yeah. It's an act of desperation. It's like a clinging to this existence, clinging to this sort of, at the very, very fundamental level, we cling to our position, we cling to our, let's say, our social status, we cling to our family, we cling to our prestige, we cling to our career, and we cling to this life. And we cling to pleasure, we cling to imagination, we cling to fantasies. There are so many things we really want to get hold of. We want to keep them forever. We want them to last. We want them to be forever. And that is our innate nature for happily ever after. Yeah. And that kind of happily ever after is at the very, very extreme. There are philosophies of clinging to concept called self, clinging to such a thing called permanent self, clinging to so overarching absolute. They call it absolute, or they call it Brahma, yeah, Brahman type of. That is the never, never subject to destruction, everlasting, ever present, always happiness, always source of happiness, is not influenced by any kind of activities through our mind or body, is completely independent, untouched, imperishable. That kind of notion, that kind of idea, that such a thing called permanent self, and that is the extreme. Yeah. So it's beyond our ordinary folks. There are many, many people who wants to be united with kind of happily ever after, that kind of ultimate self, to meet with their ultimate self. Yeah. uh, that kind of philosophies, that kind of desire is a clinging at the extreme. And because that is a concept, that is an imagination, that is something fabricated, that is something not contacted through your body and mind. You have not, because you have not been able to experience that. That is a concept, that is a fabrication. Yeah. So because of this nature of our experience that I mentioned earlier, and Buddha said, this world and this experience is, there is a deepest paradox in our experience is whatever we cling to, whatever we imagine, by the very act of imagining, it turns otherwise. And Buddha said that, and there are many, many, you know, vast majority of kind of people in Indian philosophical landscape, they still believe in that sort of a permanent self and so on, which is bit, yeah, I would not comment on that kind of philosophies. And our, that is why I want to confine this question to the terminologies and experiences that we can directly relate to in our practice. And what is that kind of clinging that we can see is leading to that sort of a change, and what is the mechanism, what is that sort of instability, what is the inherent flaw in their nature that do not make them stable, everlasting, and completely immutable, that kind of a completely permanent. So, and there are three things that Buddha found very unsatisfactory in our experiences. And Buddha called them as, our experience is impermanent. That means there is nothing in our experience that is permanent, everlasting, happily ever after. There is no such thing called happily ever after, even though there are fairy tales about many happily ever after. But the Buddha couldn't find anything that can last. Yeah. So number one is the impermanence, and number two is suffering. That means these experiences, by the very experience that we can perceive, by that very token, that is suffering. Yeah. Having to experience is suffering. Yeah, Buddha found that. And the third one is not self. That means there is nothing that is that you can be possessed of, that is you, that is, there is no such thing as yourself, your unimmutable, everlasting, permanent, and that can stay with you forever. So these three kind of realities were found by the Buddha, and nothing in our experience have got on any of those qualities of happily ever after, of completely permanent, and complete happiness. There is no happiness. So, and that means whatever that means, the that very by that very nature, uh, our experiences uh, all are fleeting, all are fabricated, all are uh, dependent. Yeah. So the very clinging, the act of clinging is trying to latch onto something. It's like groping into to some very fragile and very, it's like a trying to find a support, and but the very foundation that you are standing on is shaky. Yeah. So it's like, imagine like you are stepping on a cliff. Any step you take, it's gonna be, there is no support for you. All you can do is, whatever you try to get support is, there is nothing substantial for you to latch onto. Yeah. So you see, uh, this is why, uh, this feeling, this body, this feeling, this perception, this intention, and this consciousness. Yeah. So these are all we have. Yeah. Anything we in front of our experience, there is nothing beyond these five things, these five aggregates. So anything beyond is your imagination, and that imagination is your product of your intention and your formation. Yeah. And that intention and formation will give you the awareness, and awareness will link you with the perception, and so on. Yeah. So it is all now going into that sort of imaginary land. It's all about that sort of fancy stories, and going into that sort of a daydream. Yeah. So there is nothing really, something, we can make this thing in any way we want. Yeah. So all we are doing is, it's like a there is we are like a tenants of our in a house with a no lease. Yeah. No contract. That means we can be evicted by our landlords, by our masters, and these are our masters. Body is our master, feeling is a master, perception is our master, formation is our master, consciousness. Yeah. So they can kick us out, they can evict us. That means pain, death, suffering, sorrow, lamentation, grief can come up instantly if these masters are angry with us. Yeah. So we are living in a mercy of these five things. They can leave us in the mouth of death at any time. Yeah. So we do cling to a pleasure, happiness, peace, joy, as if we can make use of these things that we have rented temporarily. And because of these are kind of our, we don't own them. There is nothing in these experiences that will give us any kind of sense of continuity is we can only wish that these pleasures, happiness, and peace will last. Yeah. So it is by sheer chance of luck, or not luck, but at least it is a sheer chance of a good deed, good volitional activities that that contribution to the bank account of merits that we did, that we helped some other beings in a bad fortune to alleviate their suffering. Because we alleviated their suffering, our bank account went up, and we got that sort of extra merit that allowed us to prolong this happiness. Yeah, you see, or anything in our experiences that we are enjoying, that kind of happiness, that joy, that peace, these are because we have done some activities, and we are reaping the benefit out of those past deeds. Yeah. So that will already bring some sort of uh, in a bit of uh, unpredictability, and on, let's say, unsatisfactory to our ambition and desire. We want to be happy. We want to cling to that sort of happiness forever, but the fuel for that is only lasting. We have not we have not done enough, and we cannot enjoy those happiness forever. There is no way. Yeah. So that is uh, that is the process. Is inevitably we have to find a way to be endowed with this happiness. But for that, we need to do some sort of we need to make sure that we have done enough to be able to experience the fruit of our past deed. Yeah. So, and this will make our experiences rather uh, shall I say, rather on yeah, uncontrollable. We cannot control anything. Yeah. All we are doing is we can only experience of uh, anything that we have to do our deeds to be able to benefit from that past deeds. So that will that is why we have to, this world is uh, there is no happiness that we can find that is going to last forever. So, but if we flip that coin, the suffering that arises are far greater. Yeah. So that suffering is, I mentioned about this phenomena being the suffering, is that the fact that we have to feel, we have to perceive, we have to pay attention to, we have to be conscious of, we have to do deeds, we have to do the kind of activities through body, speech, and mind. That means these are kind of these experiences will inevitably uh, lead to some suffering, in a sense that uh, the suffering is phenomenological experiences, and because they are connected in such a chain of activities that are dependent, that means as long as these dependencies have not been uprooted, we will inevitably be, falling in the mercy of what is called the chain of past deed catching up and making us to feel pleasure and pain through this body and mind. Yeah. So, and I did mention even the pleasure is this pleasure is not happiness. It's not pleasure is only temporary, is fleeting, and this pleasure is not that a lasting happiness, because we cannot find a lasting pleasure. It's like I gave and Buddha gave a simile of bone without any flesh, empty and hollow. Yeah, very, very fleeting, and it's like a mirage. Yeah, this pleasure is extremely short-lived. There is nothing in this pleasure that we can relish for more than certain duration. So this pleasure is not happiness, and suffering, the pain is obviously we this pain is abundant, and that there is far greater pain than pleasure in this world. Yeah. So that is why this phenomena, having to perceive, having to feel all these sort of things, are to be in that sort of in a destiny, to be obliged, to be forced to feel, perceive, to experience the pain and pleasure, is because of this sort of our our bondage, our destiny. Yeah. So it's like a jail. It's like we are confined in this five aggregate. Yeah. So there is there is no freedom. There is no lasting happiness in these five aggregates, five components of these experiences. So, and there is nothing. I mentioned about three characteristics. They are impermanent, they are suffering, and they are not self. So these five aggregates, these five experiences, they are like a very, very fragile and precarious and very, very dangerous cliffs with no It's like you are blind. You want to lean onto something, and there is a cliff. There is a cliff here. There is a cliff there. There is a cliff behind everywhere. So these five aggregates. Think of these five aggregates like a you are stuck in this middle of this vast chasm. Wherever you try to lean onto, wherever you try to get support, thereby you are kind of meeting the destiny of falling into cliff, going under the bus, being shot, being crossed, bombarded. You see all these sort of things. Yeah. So this existence is that is why nothing in this existence there is there is any kind of support that will give you that sort of relief. There is no relief in this clinging that to this kind of five experiences. So that is why we repeatedly experiencing pain, debacles, disaster, death, and the sort of cancer, you know, yeah, all these organs failing and meeting that sort of excruciating pain and debacle and disaster. So that is, if we cling to these experiences, if I say this body is me, if I say this feeling is me, if I say this perception is me, then what the Buddha said was, because you identify, you are trying to lean onto these things, you are trying to find support from these fragile and very, very precarious experiences, because of your tendency to lean onto these these very, very, let's say, unreliable, fragile, and very, very ruthless phenomena, that you are carrying that sort of false hope, false uh, expectation of relief, because you are relying on this sort of phenomena that do not provide that sort of you of any solace, any relief, then anything, any seeking of relief on those phenomena, any clinging to them, any effort to latch onto them is gonna inevitably lead to that kind of situation. As I said, that imagine a situation like I give a situation of like a you are left in this in the very top of a cliff, and wherever you try to find the support, you will fall down from the cliff. Situation, how precarious that is. So that means all this very, very, where we are surrounded by that sort of experience, and wherever we try to lead on to in these experiences, they are not they are not providing that sort of relief. So what the Buddha showed is that is why this whole experience, anything we can experience, there is no lasting happiness, and they do become the reality. They do become they arise. This body arises, this feeling arises, this perception arises, the consciousness arises, and It's not there already out there, something solid, permanent entity. These are fabricated because of our engagement, yeah, because we wanted something out of this body, something out of this feeling, something out of this, and they gave what uh, we deserved, yeah, not what we wanted, yeah. So, and only lasting happiness that that the Buddha discovered was, if you try to you find a relief in this phenomena, then there is no happiness. There is no ending of suffering by clinging on to by trying to find support from this phenomena, from these five aggregates. Because they are extremely fragile, extremely dangerous. Yeah. So what the Buddha found was this only way to be free, to be independent, be free of suffering, is to abandon this phenomena. They do arise because of our projection, because of our attention, because of our reaction. It's like they do come up like a ghost, yeah, in front of us. They just arise. This sight arose, sound arose, the tangibles arose, the tactile object arose. They do arise because what? Because of mind made a contact with all these phenomena. Because of the contact, there is a feeling arose, and that feeling we have reacted to. We either wanted to grab that or try to push them away. Because of that sort of reaction, we started to carry them over. It's like they do become like a shadow, yeah, like a ghost that we are constantly carrying with us. Yeah. So, and until and unless you are able to see them for what they really are, these five aggregates, is you are feeding them, you are fueling them, you are nurturing them, and because of that, they become your identity. You identify with them, and they will drag us to the more and more suffering. They will drag us to death. They will drag us to pain and suffering. So, and Buddha mentioned a very, very important state is being devoid, being free of all these phenomena by abandoning, by letting them go, by not paying attention to them, by calming of these reactions. Yeah. So, um, the way the Buddha's discovery of this ending of this, let's say, process of uh, dangers and debacles of this clinging to those experiences is to gradually to gradually loosen the grip of trying to possess or be clinging into the sort of experiences. So the our part of jhana, part of 6R, if I can say that. So 6R is basically relaxation and abandoning. Yeah. So that is gonna loosen our grip. That is gonna sever the tie. with all these experiences. So it's gonna weaken the bondage around all our experiences on the sixth sense basis. Yeah. So sixth sense basis is our, there are the ties, there are cords, or what is called the uh, Buddha calls it, there are five cords of sensual pleasures, and there is a cord with mind. Yeah. So it will weaken and it will sever the ties of those five senses and six senses, and that is where the state of independence, state of emptiness, state of voidness, that kind of a freedom is found. And we do not have to rely on anything at all. So that is the state that the Buddha has given to us. That does not require any dependency on any of these experiences. So that is the state of what is called supportless state, dependenceless state, and desirelessness state. Yeah. So it's a very, very, when we are in the state of jhana, and in that sort of a, when we have developed that sort of mind to such a degree to allow all the process to be, just allow everything to be, do not project anything, do not react to anything, allow everything to be, then those phenomena will calm down, they will subside to such an extent that it will become like a completely still lake. Yeah, that all this sort of agitation, all this vibration come to stand still. That's where your body, the feeling, the perception, the formation, and consciousness, they will just disappear. All those experiences, the phenomena will go to. Yeah, so there is an end of all these sort of phenomena, dependent phenomena, coming to what is called the come to cessation. Yeah. So that is the process, and it's like a you might have seen uh, some, say there is a light. Yeah, there's so the source of light, and it has radiated all the sort of photons or light beams across all the directions. Yeah. So those are the kind of, those are the projection, those are the phenomena. Yeah. So how they arise is that if those photons and the sort of lights and everything, they arose because there was a wall, there was a, let's say, kind of a screen, whatever object that could support that beam of light. Yeah. So if all the sort of support have been taken out, then that beam of light will have no way of generating that sort of, you cannot see uh, that light at all, because for that light to become a reality, it needs a support. Yeah, it needs an eye. Yeah. So in that case, just that means there was a source, but because it didn't find the sort of a platform for that source to land into, it just became it didn't that that dependency didn't materialize because it didn't find the platform. That dependency fell apart. Yeah. So that dependency falling apart is the state of independence. That is the state of supportlessness. That is the state of emptiness, and that is the state of desirelessness. All this mean the same thing. So that is where the ultimate freedom from all these phenomena lie. Yeah. So as I mentioned, this until and unless we know this, that this clinging, trying to latch on to anything in our experience is there is nothing in our experience that will provide us the relief. And only way to be free of this sort of phenomena that do not provide relief is to abandon them, not give them a platform, give them a support. Yeah. And that is how we become independent. Hopefully, this is useful to you. Thank you very much.